Hey, sorry it's been a while for this, but hopefully we'll be getting back on track very soon. This is Esther. Hopefully we will get finished the last of it from last time. And then we should be going back into Genesis, I think. Hopefully. We need to finish chapter 1! What is this? We can't finish chapter 1! No. But it'll be good going through Genesis, getting back into Genesis. And so I guess with that, it's on with the show. Here we go for hopefully the rest of Esther. Record as well. There we go.
Okay, well, hello everybody. That was our introduction to you for life. You know, chit-chatting a little bit there. And so this week we're going to finish up the Megillah Esther. We've done about 3 chapters a week, I guess. And we're going to finish the last 3 chapters, or 4 chapters.
Well, we did 4 last week, I think.
Well, we should be in chapter 8, shouldn't we?
Yeah, I think we finished 7. I think we're in 8 this week because we did 3, 4, 5,
okay,
6.
There we go.
And so we're 7, 8, 9 because the first week.
Oh, we are 7.
Yeah, as far as I know, because I think you accidentally last week went over 3 when we had done it the week before.
Yes. That's possible. Okay. We'll see. Maybe we'll have. I guess we'll have 4 chapters that we'll try to get through and finish it up. Rick is on vacation next week, so we won't be having our typical show. And the week after, this is what we're talking about with Pesach for Passover. I may not be available depending on how things fall out. It'll be during the Kol HaMoed, which is basically for Sukkot, the Feast of Booths, and Pesach for Passover. You have the initial holiday, you have the intermediary days, and you have the end cap of the holiday. So those are both called Yom Tovs, or good days, where you actually they're Shabbat-like. So you can't, a lot of things you can't do on Shabbat, you can't do on a Yom Tov. So we'll be in the Kol HaMoed during that time, but you know Pesach is very busy. And if you want to know what times of year Israel pretty much shuts down, it's during some of these major feasts, during Passover and then the high holidays. So that's why I'm not entirely sure if I'll be here in 2 weeks. So it may be 3 weeks until we do another show.
Yeah, so, and at that point we should be back in Genesis. Chapter 1,
still chapter 1, verse 20. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started.
Well, maybe that week we'll finally get out of chapter 1.
We can only hope. It depends on how many rabbit trails you can put me on. That's the issue, is that it's always you. You're always holding up the show. Or you're derailing the show. That's the problem. You're always derailing the show.
Hey, but I think people want to know the information that I derail it with. Well, some of it anyways.
Well, you know. We'll go with that for now. That's fine. That'll be out. So anyway, so chapter 7, verse 1. So this is my grand picture here. King Ahasuerus with Esther behind him, and Haman. This is funny. I'll just give you a background on the art, just because I drew this, so I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah.
I remember I had drawn this whole thing, colored it all. And then we got into a discussion about her face and the expression she had on her face. And let me see if I can get in there. So anyway.
She's like, oh my God, what's happening?
Well, this was the thing, was that originally she looked evil. And they were like, no, she looks evil there. And I go, she does look evil there. So.
Okay, you went from, I didn't see that one, but now I think she looks a little too, I didn't expect this to happen. Yeah, right.
Well, and she's supposed to be concerned because she doesn't know that just because the king has fallen out with Haman, she doesn't know what impact that will have with her and her being Jewish and then her people. Because remember, Haman, the king had already written out this decree.
Yeah.
And so technically, according to the law, Queen Esther should be up on the chopping block. Like
all it means, if I remember right from my rereading of Esther, is that people could attack them. They didn't have to. Nobody could necessarily attack them, But I guess depends on how much they were hated by, a neighbor or something. Somebody that's got a beef.
Well, it's not always just a beef. Sometimes it's an opportunity to steal the wealth. This is one of the things that Jews have experienced over the centuries is, for example, the Catholic Church. I'm always kind of fascinated, which they decided to do some laws and ignore others. So the Catholic Church had a law against usury between Christians. So what happened was that giving loans, it's hard for a country not to operate if you don't have some sort of banking system or the ability to take loans. And nobles, the royal court itself needed to have the ability to take loans.
Yeah.
So because the Jews were oftentimes prevented from taking on certain types of jobs, they a lot of times went into like merchants. So they would build up. They would have some of them would build up a lot of wealth.
Yeah.
Not all of them. But they would have a lot of wealthy Jews, and because Jews and Christians were different, the rules against usury was not a problem. It wasn't a problem according to the church, and it wasn't a problem for the Jews. And so what would happen is they would take these loans, and for a while there would be a good faith back and forth. Typically these things would happen when Jews were in sort of the golden era, wherever it was. But at some point, the nobles and the king can't pay back the loans anymore.
Yeah.
So what do? Well, it's really convenient to suddenly come up with some charges against the Jews and then to get out of the loan and take their wealth.
Yeah.
So the decree the king has here gave people the opportunity
to do whatever they wanted.
And so it's not just a matter of not liking Jews, it's becomes a matter of
opportunity.
And that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
And people can get very bloodthirsty too. So it's like not only do I have the opportunity to take the wealth of somebody else, but I get a free pass on murder.
Yeah. So most of the time it's like, it's not that they hate these guys. It's just, unfortunately, also partly a human thing where, I can suddenly get rich by taking all this guy's stuff and get away with it.
Right, exactly.
And as far as I know, in this time period, too, the king, he made the decree, but he can't just undecree the decree that he made. It's not really like today where you can just, take it before, Parliament and...
Well,
at least
that is certainly the claim the book of Esther makes. Now, the thing is, and this is, I don't know, sometimes the way Jews look at things sounds a little heretical to Christians, I think. So I don't know, you can tell me. But it could be, and I put this as an outside possibility, I don't know if I believe this, but it's a possibility, that the book of Esther, which was published throughout the entirety of Ahasuerus' kingdom, had to put the king in a certain positive light. Like, my hands were tied. I just couldn't do this terrible thing. I couldn't undo this terrible thing. Haman tricked me. So it could be that the king was tricked and the king his hands were tied because that's the way the law worked. Or it could also be that this was sort of like, we'll give him a pass on this one because he did come around at the end. I don't know. I
think Daniel too, which is like you said, possibly Daniel's in the background in here where you guys aren't quite 100% sure. But Daniel,
I'm sure because I drew him in there.
yeah, well, I mean, in the story for sure, you drew him in, but that's based on a lot of Jewish supposition, tradition.
Tradition. So yeah, this is the picture, chapter 4.
Yeah.
Where the person standing here in the background is supposed to be Daniel the prophet.
Yeah.
And he and Mordecai were contemporaries.
Yeah, but I think of when the king, and I think it was a different king, got tricked about Daniel in the lion's den. About Daniel praying and all that. So he wasn't able to undecree the decree for Daniel not to pay that price. Of going into the den of lions.
And there is something to be said that to a certain extent people do want stability. But here's what I'll tell you. His name in Hebrew is Ahasuerus, which means a pain in the head. And one of the reasons he was called a pain in the head was because he was sort of like wishy-washy. He just sort of like, he was very moody.
Yeah.
One minute he was fine, next minute, King Vashti's dead. So that was the part of the problem with him.
Yeah.
So it could be just that Haman got in the right mood and got him, and maybe it is true, but that makes him seem sort of incompetent.
Yeah.
The problem is that was King Ahasuerus really incompetent? Like we understand that actually he was a stable boy, and he took himself from being a stable boy all the way to being the king of the Persian Empire. That's not an incompetent person. You can't be an incompetent person and accomplish that.
No, very true.
So there's that slight question, but we will spin to because that becomes very speculative. There's no point in speculating too much about that. But it is interesting to think about.
Yeah.
So verse 1. So the king and Haman came to the banquet with Esther the queen, and the king said again unto Esther on the second day at the banquet of wine, whatever your petition, Queen Esther, it shall be granted, and whatever you request, even to the half of the kingdom, it shall be performed. Then Queen Esther,
which basically means something I learned. Basically, the full kingdom, because she's entitled to half the kingdom or something. I heard something about. I know this is. I think it was with John the Baptist, so it's a different time, different era, and all that. So it might be different. I think it was with John the Baptist when the one girl danced before Herod, not Herod. One guy, Herod, whoever was over Israel at that time.
Well, Herod was the.
Oh yeah, I think it was Herod, and then, like the daughter of his wife danced before, and he basically, said you can have up to half the kingdom, and then she instead of taking that, she just takes John the Baptist's head on a platter.
Right. He could have been sincere. He could have been sincere.
Yeah.
But with Queen Esther here, I don't know that Queen Esther necessarily had any rights to anything.
Yeah.
So I think this could have been a scenario where he was actually saying, "I'll give you half the kingdom." But, we'll have to see. So, and she said, and Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition, and my people at my request. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish." What does she mean we were sold? Because Haman told the king in the earlier chapter, "I'll give you this much money if you let me, if you put out this decree." And the king said, "Sure, there you go." So they were actually sold to be destroyed.
Yeah.
But if we had been sold for bondmen and bondwomen, I would hold my peace, right? So she's saying, if it were just a simple matter that we've been sold into slavery, what can we say, right? Because in part, the recognition in Jewish history is that that Hashem has put us in exile for a couple of different reasons.
Yeah.
One is to make up for sins that we've committed, specifically the sin of not allowing the land to allow fallow during the Shemitah year, and which we're in Shemitah this year.
Yeah, not allowing the land to rest.
Right. That was why we were kicked out in the first period kingdom,
And,
the first temple period. The second temple period, the reason that we were exiled was because of baseless hatred.
Following other gods too, a lot of times.
Well, it's funny. Well, that did happen to some extent, but that's not why Hashem, really punished us. Because we even see this back with the Tower of Babel, where it versus the pre-flood, people before the flood. So in that story, thank you, Rick, for yet another rabbit hole.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So if you remember, in the story prior to the flood, it says the land was filled with violence, right?
Yeah.
And so at that point, that's when the flood comes on. When you get to the Tower of Babel, they wanted to go and make war against God. It was just some crazy stuff. And in fact, we have rabbis who say that the people in that era were even greater sinners than the people in the era of
the flood, or before the flood. Yeah, but God had promised not to destroy the world again via flood.
Well, but with the flood, he could destroy the world with fire, though.
Yeah.
Right. So, but the thing is that at the very least they deserve to be punished. But God put it off. And why did God put it off if they were such great sinners? Because the one thing that happened in that era was that people got along with each other. They worked together.
Yeah.
They didn't murder each other, right?
So he just threw in some confusion with different languages.
That's right. The punishment was much more mild because ultimately God wants us to get together, get along. And my dad explained this to me when I was young.
Yeah.
He said the way I understand this is like a father with his children. Like ultimately, as a father, it's more important to me that my children love each other, get along with each other, than my children love me. And I think this is a good analogy for God's attitude for people in general. Like, why did God send a prophet Jonah to Nineveh, right? Because he cares about people, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish. God cares about you. And so one of the reasons that we were exiled the second temple period was because of baseless hatred and for one another, and it was just like it was very problematic. And there are stories about that. I won't go into detail, but there's another reason. The other reason is so that we can spread out through the world, and then it says you shall be a light unto the nations. And so when the Jewish people are out amongst the nations and they observe us keeping our Torah, that is inspirational and can actually help the world draw closer to God. So here he is. So given that there is a reason for us to be in exile, ultimately, if we were sold into servitude, as happened with Daniel and the others, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's pretty harsh. But at the same time, at least we're not being told we can't keep our religion.
Yeah, or we're not being told we're about to be killed.
Right, exactly.
Just for being Jewish.
Right. So, and I think a lot of people would react the same way. I think that they would like, well, there's an opportunity for life. There's hope. So, but Queen Esther is saying, but no, he wants to kill us. And then he says, I am a peace, for the adversary has no thought to the king's loss. He has no thought to the king's loss. What is he talking about? What loss is the king talking about? Is she talking about for the king? What was the king lose out on?
People that make money. People that make money for the king. Because servants. Well, for like the people, they're servants, right? They make money, taxes given to the king. Blah blah blah. It makes money for him.
Sure.
And if they're dead, they can't make money for him in that way.
And also, the Jews were used like the Greeks or the Romans, were a scholarly class of people. I think it was Plato who referred to the Jews as a nation of philosophers.
Yeah.
And they had so the Jewish people always had a very high regard for education, which made them useful to kings. And so a lot of times you had illiterate kings who would make use of the Jews who actually did a lot of commerce, knew different languages, and had a network. And so that was another positive. Also, you had the loyalty of the Jewish people, which Mordecai demonstrated openly. He saved the king's life and never demanded a reward, never brought it up again. Versus you have Haman, who just can't wait to get his hands on the king's crown. And the king knows this. The king absolutely knows that Haman can't wait to replace him. That's what the whole thing with him leading Mordecai about on the horse, that showed him exactly what was in Haman's heart. Then spoke the king Ahasuerus and said unto Esther the queen, who is he and where is he that dares presume in his heart to do so? Esther said, an adversary and an enemy, even this wicked Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king.
I guess so.
And the king arose in his wrath.
Don't
do that. You have to say it. And went into the palace guard, but Haman remained to be Esther's wife, Esther the queen, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. King was, this is a great opportunity. The king was already probably looking for an excuse to get rid of Haman, but he had such a high level of power. There was a lot he could do. But this is similar, if you think about it, to King David, who had one of his generals, and remember, Joab. Joab.
Yeah, with Bathsheba's husband.
No. That's a different thing. I'm talking about Joab. Remember when King David is in the Civil War, the midst of the Civil War, and and they're fighting against the soldiers of King Shaul. And
King Saul? Is that Saul?
Yeah, Saul. And they make peace. And the main general from the other side, who's a righteous man, comes to make peace, and he is murdered by Joab.
And David's not king yet, right?
Well, he was king, but it was a split kingdom. But with this united the kingdom. But what happened though was Joab came from a very influential family, and David couldn't. The man had committed murder, but David didn't have the power yet. He didn't have enough strength as a king to be able to punish Joab. So on his deathbed, he called King Solomon in, and he said, "You got to take care of this guy."
Okay. This is before. This is way after Saul then, right?
After Saul's death, right before Saul dies, and then eventually David takes over half the kingdom.
I thought he took over. No, he took over it all, didn't he? It was divided, I think, after Solomon because of some of the things Solomon did.
Well, it was divided with Rehoboam, Solomon's son. But I'm talking about at the very beginning when King David first takes power, the kingdom he's not able to immediately take over the entire kingdom because the people were loyal to King Saul and to his son.
Well, I think all except for one was, grandson to Saul was dead, right? The disabled one that
that was the youngest son of Saul.
I thought he was maybe like Jonathan's son.
Jonathan's son. He was Jonathan's son. That's right. He was Jonathan's son. So I'm just saying that there are situations where the king is not at freedom to deal with the nobles in any way that he wants to with the aristocracy. The king has to keep his power. If the nobles feel threatened, like the king will just at any moment kill whoever he wants to, they can lead to a revolt. It can lead to a loss of taxation, of money, and a lot of different things. So here, Haman has given him a golden opportunity to dispose of him, and other than him being angry about this, probably I would suspect more that I think probably King Ahasuerus is probably a lot more savvy than we give him credit for. I think his anger in part is really it's there, but I think really for him this is an opportunity to get rid of Haman. He knows he's plotting against him.
Yeah. Or maybe he really feels betrayed because he thought this was a decent guy. Could be too.
Remember we read in this chapter, right? He says, when Queen Esther invited Haman again, he goes, "What's going on with these two? Right? What's going on with these two?" He was getting suspicious that maybe they were going to be joining forces against him.
Yeah.
And so he was getting a little bit suspicious about the whole thing.
Did it say that, or were we just inflecting that he might be getting suspicious?
Part of it was that from the language and the way things were said, it seemed to infer that was definitely a way to read the text. Certainly, we have more data and information from the Jewish text, but if you read the actual text of Esther, I think you can get this idea that more is going on below the surface.
More is going on than meets the eye.
Well, yes, exactly. They're all Transformers. Now, listen. The thing is that with remember, this whole book is about about hiding. Everybody's hiding, right? And you need to go below the surface. God is hiding in the world. That's why we never mention God's name. Queen Esther is hiding as a Jewess. She never reveals her true identity. Haman is hiding his intentions. The king is probably hiding his own real ability from other people because that's one way he keeps himself alive, making the picture of confidence. There are a lot of elements within this whole story that talk about things are being hidden, and so I think that sometimes in the book of Esther, and I wouldn't do this with every book, I just see a theme here, and I think this theme of hiding, I think this is a good opportunity to delve into a little more and look at it in a little bit more detail and say, oh, look at this, there's something suspicious going on with this.
Yeah.
More so than you would imagine, you'd think urgent. Now, Rick, we're already 27 minutes into this thing. You have
Have we gotten through a chapter yet?
No. We didn't bring a third guy in here, and he's gonna be a timekeeper. You're like, move on. I had a friend of mine that we used to learn Torah together. A group of us would learn Torah together, and we'd get off on these rabbit trails, and he'd go, moving on. And that was his job. Was to say, moving on. Let's get back to it.
Yeah, but these rabbit trails are just so interesting. If it takes us another week, hopefully we get through 2 chapters.
You're killing me. So it says, for he saw that there was evil determined against him by the king. Then the king returned out of the palace guard into the place of the banquet of wine. And Haman was fallen upon the couch, whereon Esther was. And said the king, will you even force the queen before me in the house? As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Last straw, it looked like he was attacking her or trying to assault her in some way.
Yeah. And the king was having none of it.
He said, nope, I'm getting rid of you, for sure. Then said Harbonah, one of the chamberlains that were before the king, behold, also the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman has made for Mordecai, who spoke good for the king and stands in the house of Haman. The king said, hang him on. Now this is the thing, is that look, now you got the servants, jumping in saying, hey, guess what? Even worse, the guy that saved your life, Haman wants to kill him. Oh, really? Okay, well let's put him on the gallows.
The tables are turned.
So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then was the king's wrath assuaged, and he was obviously mad. But what's he mad about? What's he more mad about? That he got tricked, or that Haman was plotting against him? This is chapter 8, and here this artwork shows King Ahasuerus signing a document. This is the document that goes out saying the Jews now have the right to defend themselves. And up here you can see everybody's kind of like at the top. they're all like, oh, what's going on?
Some of them are like, yeah. Some of them are like, yeah, I don't know.
Right. Well, and the thing is that, you know, somebody's very excited they're singing outside. This happens like almost every night. Someone's singing somewhere. Very nice.
Yes.
Anyway, so chapter 8, verse 1, on that day did the king Ahasuerus give the house of Haman, the Jews, enemy, unto Esther the queen. So he gave Haman's house to Esther. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he wasn't to her. He's her uncle. Okay? This was also another thing that was hidden. The enemy is Mordecai. Who's Mordecai? He's the queen's uncle.
Yeah. Nobody knew that, too.
Nobody knew that as well. Like, a lot of things are being hidden.
Nobody even knew that they knew each other.
The book of Esther is so interesting, Rick, because there are so many things. When you look at it, when you just read it, it seems very like a very simple, straightforward fairy tale type story. But when you really look at it, it's actually got a lot more depth to it than you would imagine.
Yeah.
In verse 2, and the king took off his ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it unto Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. And now we have a new Joseph to be put in charge. He's the second to the king. Verse 3, and Esther spoke yet again before the king, and fell down at his feet, and besought him with tears to put away the mischief of Haman the Agagite, and his device that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king held out to Esther the golden scepter. She came before him once again, unannounced, uncalled for. So Esther arose and stood before the king, and she said, if it please the king, and if I have found favor in his eyes, and the things seem right before the king, and I be pleasing to him, let it be written to reverse the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to destroy the Jews, and all the king's provinces. One thing that I didn't point out earlier, when Esther initially approached the king, the chapter 6, was that there's a tricky situation regarding Esther's status as far as being able to marry somebody. That is that so long as Esther only came to the king when she was told to come, it can be considered like she was doing things against her will. But the moment that she went to the king, she was now like she was accepting that relationship, and so now she's more or less forbidden from anybody else. If the king had died, then she might have been freed up to marry a Jewish man. But unfortunately, now the sacrifice she had to make was her future happiness with a Jewish wedding. 6. For how can I endure to see the evil that shall come upon my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my kindred? Verse 7. Then the king Ahasuerus said unto Esther the queen, and to Mordecai the Jew, behold, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and him they have hanged upon the gallows because he laid his hand upon the Jews. Do you know why Jews are called Jews?
No, it wouldn't have been the same thing here. So, wouldn't have been that. I was thinking more because of the house of Judah, but that would be wrong because it wouldn't have been, Israel wouldn't have been split, I think, at this point yet. Or would have it?
No, they are. No, they were split. They were, the northern tribes were split and taken into captivity by the Assyrians before the southern tribes. The southern tribes contained the house of
Judah and Benjamin. Benjamin.
Judah, Benjamin, Levi.
Or some of the Levites, because I think the Levites would have been split between the two, right?
Right, but the majority of the Kohanim and the Kohanim are the descendants of Aaron, and the Levites are the tribe of Levi. And we have, when I go to davening in the morning, I ride into the synagogue with my friend. He's a Levi, and he so it's interesting. So tomorrow we have reading from the Torah because it's Monday. So what they do is that on the weekday reading, you have 3 readings. You have 3 aliyahs, basically, and that means 3 portions of the section of the Torah is read during the week at synagogue. The first section is reserved for the Kohen. So, Yesh Khan Kohen, is there a Kohen here? If there is, then he gets to read the first section. And then the second section is for a Levi, someone from the tribe of Levi. And they say, is somebody from the tribe of Levi? And if they are, they go up and they get the second aliyah. And the third aliyah, the third person who called up for the Torah, would be the average everyday Jew like me. So if there's a Kohen there and I get called up for the Torah, I'm taking number 3. If there's no Kohen and there's no Levi, then I can sometimes be called up for number 1 or number 2. But yes, you're right. Actually, the reason that Jews are called Jews is because of the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
Because that was the biggest portion of Jews were from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're in some ways lost in assimilation. Already, or they were just so spread out.
Yeah.
I just want to see if you do that. So good again.
I was pretty sure, but like I said, I was thinking this might have been before the big split when it was just Israelis. But once, the other 10 tribes, I'm not sure what's happened to them. I know they're going to come back at some point. Or are they? That's what I was just about to ask. Have the other 10 tribes come back into Israel yet? Or
we have been discovering Jews all over the world, like in India, where we have people from the tribe of Manasseh, and from other places, like in Africa. And some of these people are actually, and here's the thing you have to understand is that when I say that we're finding these Jews, I'm talking about halakhic Jews, people who still count as halakhic Jews, because we have all over the world.
Okay, one sec. What's that word that you're saying before Jew mean?
Halakhic. Halakhic means according to the law.
Okay.
A Jew according to the law. Not someone who has a ethnicity or had a grandparent or somebody in the family tree was a Jew. It means somebody who, according to the Torah law, is considered a Jew. What makes somebody a Jew according to the Torah law? If you have a Yiddish mama, you're a Yid, right? If your mama was Jewish, then you're Jewish. And then if the second thing is if you're a convert. So converts are also Jewish.
Yeah, so that's interesting that it goes with the matriarchy, not the patriarchy, for that.
Well, but to be part of the tribe, that depends on your father.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess it's interesting how it incorporates both. One, to be Jewish, it depends on the matriarchy. But what tribe you're in depends on the patriarchy.
That's right. So it's not a complete patriarchy, if you will.
Yeah. It's just interesting.
Sure. Well, and that's just the intention of God is for the men and the women to work together. Adam and Eve were originally one being, and they were split apart by God.
Yeah.
And when a man and woman get married together, it's like they're reuniting.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Is that ultimately you should try to be as much as one with your wife as you can be.
Yeah.
Because that unity is what really is powerful.
Yeah.
So let me go to verse 8. Write also concerning the Jews as it suits you in the king's name, and seal it with the king's ring, for the writing which is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring made no man reverse. Then were the king's scribes called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day thereof, 23rd day. And it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded concerning the Jews, even the satraps and the governors and princes of the provinces, which are from India to Ethiopia. So this is a pretty huge empire here.
Yeah.
127 provinces, unto every province according to the writing thereof, and to every people after their language, and to the Jews according to their writing and according to their language.
Yeah.
And they wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's ring, and sent letters by post on horseback riding on swift steeds that were used in the king's service, bred of the stud.
Yeah, because this is an emergency.
It's a huge emergency.
Yeah, because it's what, a month away, I think, from when they're allowed to.
Everybody's sweating bullets at this point. All the Jews are sweating bullets.
Yeah, because they don't even know this help is coming. They just know probably about the initial.
Yeah, these guys carrying proclamations will be the first news the Jews have that something's happened. 11. That the king had granted the Jews that were in every city to gather themselves together and to stand for their life, to destroy and to slay, and to cause to perish all the forces of the people and province that would assault them, their little ones and women, and to take the spoils of them. Upon one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, namely upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. The copy of the writing to be given out for a decree in every province was to be published unto all the peoples, and that the Jews should be ready against that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. So the posts that rode upon swift steeds that were used in the king's service went out, being hastened and pressed on by the king's commandment. The decree was given out for Shushan capital. And Mordecai went forth from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, with a great crown of gold, and with a robe of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan shouted and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor.
Okay, I got a question. Why is this bolded compared to the rest of them?
That's, you know what? I was hoping you wouldn't notice that.
You're hoping I wouldn't notice it?
I am trying to truck through this thing, Rick. Rabbit trail. He's going to for sure ask me about this.
Me not notice something? Come on!
So the reason it's bolded is because in the synagogue when we're reading the book of Esther, there's certain parts that we say together, and this is one of those sections. So maybe if you're an English speaker, because there's some Jews, they read this in English to understand it. So this is one of the parts that we say together.
Okay, that's cool. There's sometimes that the pastor in churches says, "Get up, let's read this scripture together." So that's basically like that. So you guys just know ahead of time which ones you read together. We don't know when the pastor might do something like that. So
that just sounds really tricky to me. Verse 17, and in every province and in every city, wherever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had gladness and joy, a feast and a good day, and many from among the peoples of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews had fallen apart upon them. It's funny that, generally speaking, there are times when we are not allowed to take on converts. During the period of time that King Solomon ruled, converts were not accepted to Judaism. And during the Messianic era, converts will also not be accepted. And the reason why is because it sure is easy to jump on the boat when it's already hit the harbor, right? When the boat's docked already, jumping on, is like, hey, look, I came with everybody else.
Okay, you were. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask you. You were saying during the Messianic era that it's they're not allowed to become converts.
Right.
Was that a period? Oh, so when Messiah shows up, there's not supposed to be allowed any converts.
Right. We won't accept converts any longer.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Well, everybody's sort of chosen their side at that point, right?
You would think so.
Well, but it's not a negative because
yeah.
Still,
I'm not saying it's a negative. I'm just finding it interesting.
Right. Well, yes, it is pretty interesting. I think so. So here is chapter 9, and here we have in Shushan. Battles have broken out.
Oh, one question about that last thing. Sure. When was that sort of decided about not accepting converts during the Messianic era?
it's always been part of like the Jewish tradition. Like, and there are other laws like when the laws of converts. There are a lot of them. One of them is we're not allowed to accept forced conversions, and there have only been 2 periods in our history where that's happened.
Yeah.
And in both those periods, it was extremely frowned upon by the scholars living in the day, and it always led to a disaster. So one of those times was with the Samaritans, when the Assyrians would take people and move them from one land to another. And so they brought the Samaritans from wherever they came from, put them in Israel, and they took the Jews and took them out of that land, the northern tribe. So, and they did sort of a conversion. I don't know if it was when they came back or if it was before, but so the Samaritans sort of got converted, but we don't accept their conversion. We don't accept the conversion. They changed the Torah. The Torah says certain things that aren't in the actual Torah. The second time it happened was with the Idumeans, and the Idumeans were, I think they were like basically Arabs, and Herod came from that. So King Herod, who was both, in some ways, he was a positive force in Israel, in some ways he was a very negative force in Israel. He's a very curious person. He was a result of a forced conversion, which the scholars, the rabbis, didn't agree to. But it was sort of like one of those things where then it became awkward, and so anyway, so it caused a lot of complications. We know Herod was who Herod was.
And just to clarify, so that tradition about the messianic thing, they go back even before Christ, right? Before that time?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, all of this is the received tradition. We have an oral
tradition
and a written tradition.
I'm just finding that interesting because at first in Scripture, at least in the New Testament, the Jews were not really willing to accept a lot of the conversion, or some seem like that, the conversion of Gentiles to Christianity, or to their version of Judaism. But that would seem rare.
Weird situation though.
Yeah.
It was a very weird situation though, because the Gentiles who were being brought forward, are they converting to Christianity, or are they converting to become Jews? Are they saying that they also keep the law? And that's the question.
It's a bit of technically it's a bit of both, because at that time, really, Christianity is just forming, if you will, but it's still considered a cult, for lack of a better way of saying it, of Judaism. So there's mainly it's sorry, I was just saying it's mainly made up of Jewish people at that point. It's then, and then it's slowly taking on 10, 20, 30, 10, 20 years, maybe less after Christ, it starts taking on Gentiles, maybe even like less than 10, maybe 5. I'm not sure of my timeline there.
Well, I'll do this from a Jewish perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you already know this from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
So the way the whole Christian thing worked from a Jewish perspective is this: that originally Christianity was a messianic movement from within Judaism.
Yeah, that I see.
Right, and there were a lot of messianic movements at that time.
I've heard that too. I'm just saying the cult thing of Judaism because of there was in New Testament it's recorded like Rome saying there's just one of a different sect of you, so that's why I say cult of so a different sect of Judaism.
Christians, right? At different points, Christians consider themselves as Jews, and other points they do not consider themselves as Jews.
Yeah.
And part of this has to do with the political situation of Jews versus Rome.
Yeah.
Part of the positive for them to claim to be Jewish was that if they didn't claim to be Jewish, then they were more or less a new religion. And at that time in the ancient world, they trusted things that were ancient, not things that were new.
Yeah.
And so there was a positive quality to attaching itself to Judaism. But then later on, when you had all the problems, the revolts and everything of Israel against the Romans, it wasn't so great to be Jewish at that point.
Yeah.
And by the point all this happens, I think Christianity morphed enough to where it was very different than what it started out to be. So the original version of Christianity, as I understand it, from a Jewish perspective, was that they understood the Messiah pretty much the way a traditional Jew understood the Messiah.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that the definition of Messiah started shifting and changing. So we didn't have a problem with the Christians. It was just another messianic a group that was claiming, well, we have the Messiah. This is the Messiah. Yada yada.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really the problem. Where they split and where the conflict started coming over was this: is Christianity, strictly speaking, a Jewish movement or a Jewish non-Jewish movement? Is it about? Does it encourage the keeping of the Torah, or does it detract from the keeping of the Torah? And
there's both.
Well, there was, because you had two groups. You had the direct disciples of Jesus, who were very Jewish, and they seemed to preach sort of a Jewish Christianity, and then you had Paul, who would very much seem to preach a rebellion against the law and to not be under the law.
Well, I wouldn't say he preached that necessarily, because trying to how to word it, but maybe this is a discussion for a different time. This is a very big rabbit trail, and we do want to try and get done.
You're right. So I'll go ahead and move on.
I'm sorry for that. Well,
that's okay. Well, you started this. You brought the whole thing up. So
I know. I was just trying to clarify some things in my mind and just seeing how things. And I just felt like I said, if I'm not interested, anyways.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting subject. I find it very fascinating because, with Jewish history, we have certainly our perspective on what happened, and then, Christians have their perspective on what happened.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting comparing and contrasting those two things.
Yeah.
Chapter 9, verse 1, now in the 12th month, right, it's the month we're building up to, which is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's commandment and his decree drew near to be put in execution, in the day that the enemies of the Jews hoped to have rule over them, whereas it was turned to the contrary, that the Jews had rule over them that hated them. The Jews gathered themselves together in their cities throughout all the provinces of the king Ahasuerus to lay hand on such as sought their hurt. This is such very flowery language. If you don't understand what's going on, I'll just say it in regular everyday English, which is the Jews got together and they would go out and kill those who wanted to kill them. For the fear of them was fallen upon all the people. And all the princes of the provinces, and the satraps and the governors, and they that did the king's business helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai was fallen upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame went forth throughout all the provinces. For the man Mordecai waxed greater and greater. So what's ultimately the fear of the Jews? Why are the people? Because obviously the Jews are being outnumbered. They're out there. Every city the Jews exist in, they're outnumbered. Well, they had two protections. One was the king's decree, and second, Mordecai's number 2 in the entire kingdom. Number 3 is the third protection. Queen Esther, the queen or the empress of the entire empire, is Jewish. So you have these 3 things. This is why they're so scared of the Jewish people, even though they were a very small minority. 5, and the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and with slaughter and destruction, and did what they would unto them that hated them. And in Shushan, the capital of the Jews, slew and destroyed 500 men. It's actually not a very big number. Datha and Dalphon and Aspatha, and Paratha and Adaliah and Eridatha, and Parmashta and Arisai and Aridai and Baizatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Jew.
And I have to say, I'm glad you read that list. There is no way I would have made that through that list pronouncing their name correctly.
But on the spoil they laid not their hand. Remember, this goes back to they're making a tikkun here. They're making a repair. What happened in the time of King Saul, where King Saul was ordered to destroy King Agag and destroy all of his goods.
And
he
he,
not only did not kill King Agag, but he also preserved the best. And here, even though they're given permission to slay, they don't hold back from slaying, and they're given permission to take the spoils, but they don't take the spoils.
yeah, they just
So
leave it.
they make a repair. On that day, the number of those that were slain in Shushan the capital was brought before the king. And the king said to Esther the queen, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the capital, and the 10 sons of Haman. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now whatever your petition is shall be granted to you, and whatever your request further shall be done. Then said Esther, if it pleases the king, let it be granted to the Jews that are in Shushan to do tomorrow also according unto this day's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged upon the gallows. The king commanded it to be so, to be done. A decree was given out in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews that were in Shushan, yeah.
Weren't they already dead? Didn't they say a few verses up they killed them? The 10
Yeah, they were
sons?
just I think they were just hanging their bodies up for display.
Okay.
Which this happened. Look, King Saul and Jonathan were hung up from the outside of the city walls, just a sign of, don't mess with us. That's what we did to our enemies.
Yeah.
Then the Jews that were in Shushan gathered themselves together on the 14th day also of the month of Adar, and slew 300 men in Shushan, but on the spoil they laid not their hands. And the other Jews that were in the king's provinces gathered themselves together and stood for their lives, and had rest from their enemies, and slew of them that hated them 75,000. On the spoil they laid not their hands. On the 30th day of the month Adar, and on the 14th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. For the Jews that were in Shushan assembled together on the 13th day thereof, and on the 14th thereof, and on the 15th day of the same, they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore do the Jews of the villages that dwell in the unwalled towns make the 14th day of the month of Adar a day of gladness and feasting and a good day, extending portions to one another.
And that's when you celebrate Purim, right now.
Well, yes, but if I lived in Jerusalem or one of the other walled cities of the time, then I would actually celebrate Purim for twice, 2 days. You have 2 feasts of Purim.
Oh.
And so they're Jews in Israel. Some of them do it for 2 days, some do it for 1 day. So we live in Pardes Chana, so we only do it for 1 day.
Cool.
And let's see, there was a point I was related, and I think I forgot what it was. Maybe that was my point. And I did want to say sending portions to one another. So we also have this tradition where we send each other like a little meal, or like a little like candy and gifts and things like that to each other. And so we'll just take like a little gift basket or something with like some treats in it, and we'll go deliver it to a family, and then we'll come home, and then somebody will have brought some for us. And the whole point behind it is to increase unity and love for one another. And it's a very nice tradition.
Yeah.
We also give a portion to the poor, and so it has to be enough for like a meal. It has to be enough food for like a meal for the poor to have.
Makes sense.
Like a $5 McDonald's meal or something, right?
Yeah.
And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters into all the Jews that were in all the provinces of Europe, both nigh and far, to enjoin them that they should keep the 14th day of the month Adar and the 15th day of the same yearly. The days wherein the Jews had rest from their enemies in the month which was turned unto them from sorrow to gladness, and from mourning into a good day, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, and of sending portions one to another and gifts to the poor. And the Jews took upon them to do as they had begun, and as Mordecai had written unto them. Because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, Agagite, the enemy of all the Jews, had devised against the Jews, to destroy them, and had cast her, a lot, that is the lot, to discomfort them and to destroy them. But when she came before the king, he commanded by letters that his wicked device, which he had devised against the Jews, should return upon his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Wherefore they call these days Purim, after the name of Pur, Lot. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, and of that which had been seen concerning this matter, and that which had come unto them, the Jews ordained and took upon them, and upon their seed, and upon all such as joined themselves unto them, so as it should not fail, that they would keep these 2 days according to the writing and according to the appointed time every year. And that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, every city, and that these days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor the memorial of them perish from their seed. Then Esther the queen, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, wrote down all the acts of power to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent letters unto all the Jews. Yep.
I just thinking, that's interesting. I'm not sure whether it said up above that who she was the daughter of. So it's interesting that we do get her, I guess, dad's her last name, first name, whatever you know what I mean.
Remember, he's officially her uncle, but he adopted her as his daughter. That's what he said at the beginning of Esther.
Okay, so that would be the daughter. Well, because I'm just saying it says Mordecai there, so is that like Mordecai's last name, if you will, or is that her? The Abihail, the daughter of Abihail.
Oh, that's her mother.
Yeah. Okay.
And Mordecai is her adopted father. And he wrote down all the acts of power to confirm the second letter of Purim. And he sent letters to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim in their appointed time, according as Mordecai the Jew and Esther the queen had adjoined them, and as they had ordained for themselves and for their seed the matters of the fasts and their cry. The commandment of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. And here we have modern Israel today, where we have the original ancient Mordecai being lifted and hoisted through the city on Purim. And you notice everybody's got everybody's background has these silly costumes on. That's because on Purim you dress up to again hide your identity. You're supposed to sort of like hide yourself.
It's almost a Halloweenish type thing.
Except for the evil.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just contrasting the dressing up and almost even that gift basket that you were saying.
Yeah.
That almost goes into it to a sense, but not quite the same way. That's why I say Halloweenish.
Right. It's like Halloween except for the evil.
And I was just thinking too. Would this be the first holiday that the Jews created themselves without the decree of God?
Yeah, the second one was Hanukkah.
Yeah, I knew about Hanukkah. That's what I was thinking. The first, I wasn't sure whether there was anything before this, and that's all. You only really have 2 holidays that you've created beyond the decrees, right?
There are a number of fast days that we've taken on over time. We got a fast day for the Shoah, for the Holocaust.
I can see that.
We've taken on also the fast of Esther. There are little extra celebrations that are related to different biblical events, like Fast of Gedaliah. But as far as major holidays, those are the only 2 major holidays that we've added of our own volition. And but these celebrate some very significant things.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. So anyway, now we're chapter 10. 10:1. And the king Ahasuerus laid a tribute upon the land and upon the isles of the sea, and all the acts of his power and his might, and the full account of the greatness of Mordecai, how the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? So there's a document out there called the Chronicles of the Kings of Media and Persia, where the Esther account is given from the Persian perspective.
Have you seen that, or is
No, it
is
doesn't
there?
exist anymore.
Okay.
If it does exist, it's locked away in a tomb somewhere, and archaeology will have to find it. The archaeologists want to find it. For Mordecai the Jew was next unto King Ahasuerus, and great among the Jews, and accepted of the multitude of his brethren, seeking the good of his people, and speaking in peace to all his seed. After the reading, the reader recites the following: only the minion is present. So this is a blessing that we say right here at the end, and I will let you read that if you want to on your own. And that is Megillah Esther. We've gone 5 minutes past the time, but I think it was worth it just to get the whole thing done, so that nobody would be held in suspense.
Yeah, for a few weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and for one chapter or a chapter and a part. Especially with the last chapter only being 3 verses. It's like, why not make it 10 chapters? It's like, throw the other 3 verses in chapter 9.
Well, I think the Catholics did that. I don't know that Esther, like most of the Tanakh was not divided up by chapters. Now we adopted it because it's a very useful system. It was a very good idea. It's just that sometimes they go, "Why'd you do that?" We didn't do that.
That was
adopted it because it was useful. So anyway, well, Rick, thank you very much for going through that with me and letting us do that. It was a side rail, but I think it was good. I think most people know the Jewish holiday of Purim very well.
Yeah.
So fun.
And that messed it up. You doing that, taking down that thing messed up my thing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't thought about that.
Oh, no, don't worry about it. I'll fix it. We're basically ended here anyways. I can go and edit this, download the last little bit or whatever. Last 2 minutes of thing. But yeah, it was great going through that with you.
Well, it was good that you said let's do it, and I was happy to show off my artwork from it. It's a free download. If you want to download it for free, you go to templeinstitute.com/Purim/, and you can get that for free and download it, and use that as your. If you find yourself at a Purim celebration next year, you'll have your Megillah.
Cool.
And Rick's not going to be here next week, but we may or may not have a meeting the week after, so we'll just see from there.
Well, how about just so everybody knows, especially on your channel, I do what I do for mine. Mine goes up when it goes up. How about we just make sure, just say, that way you're not pressured by any way. We'll just skip the next 2 weeks.
Come back 3 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
And at that time, we'll be back in Genesis, right? Or do you have something? Or do you have something for Passover? I remember you saying something.
I'm going to Passover.
Oh, I'd like that.
Take us half a year at least.
Yeah. We'll get through that. We'll deal with that when we go through.
This year. Yeah.
When we get to, by that time we might actually be to it. In what? Deuteronomy? Or no, that'd be an Exodus.
Right, Exodus. All right, well, I'll see you guys in 3 weeks.
Yeah. See everybody whenever I put up mine next. After this.
All right.
Okay, so things got a little mangled right there at the end. Sorry about that. But it is what it is. But we did get done Esther, right? So that is good. It's been a few weeks, obviously. Since you saw the last one. So sorry about that. We're supposed to be getting back on track very soon. I believe, as of me recording this, it is the 30th of April. So, and I think we're supposed to be doing a live show tomorrow on Hilal's channel TGT something. I forget the whole name. The Genesis teacher, something. That's what it stands for. The Genesis teacher. So yeah, we should be getting into that tomorrow, May 1st, doing that live, which will then be up on my channel. Who knows when? As a recording as well, with my intro and an outro. So yeah, we got finished Esther. Yay! And I think since we're way past Easter and way past the holiday that he was talking about, probably something to do with Passover, whatever. We will be going back into Genesis, I believe. We'll find out for sure. So thanks again for watching, and we will catch you all later. Thank you for watching, and remember to try and catch us live on Halal's channel if you want to ask questions, and even if you want to post questions in the comment again as Halal. So make sure we know what you're referring to with posting comments or asking questions, and we will be glad to try and answer them at the end of every episode. So okay, so bye for now. God bless. Have a great and wonderful day. Love you all.